You wake up before sunrise. The fire has almost gone out. The air is cold enough to make your fingers stiff, and somewhere beyond the darkness, something is moving through the grass. You cannot see it. You can hear it. A slow crack of a branch, then silence. No alarm, no locked door, no police station, no ambulance waiting 10 minutes away. For most of human history, the world outside your shelter was filled with animals that could kill you. Not in a zoo, not behind a fence, right outside. And the terrifying part is that you would not always know which animal was watching. Your ancestors did not live at the top of the food chain simply because humans were physically dominant. Early humans were relatively fragile animals, surrounded by predators that were faster, stronger, better armed, and often better adapted to darkness. So if you had lived hundreds of thousands of years ago, what animals should you have feared most? And which ones could actually have been hunting you? The first problem is that there was no single prehistoric world. Human evolution stretched across millions of years, and different human species lived in different environments. Homo erectus, for example, lived from roughly 1.9 million years ago to about 110,000 years ago. Fossils show a body built for life on the ground, with long legs that were well suited to walking and possibly running long distances. The Smithsonian's Human Origins program also identifies the species with some of the earliest major stone tool traditions. But imagine those long legs running, not toward prey, away from something. Because your ancestors were not always hunters. Sometimes they were the hunted. In ancient Africa, one of the most dangerous animals would have been the big cat, and not necessarily the enormous movie monster version that modern imagination creates. The danger came from something much simpler. Cats are built to ambush. A large cat does not need to chase you across an open plain for 10 minutes. It needs to remain invisible until you are close enough. That changes everything. You might be carrying food. You might be searching for water. You might be following an animal trail. Your attention is somewhere else. Then the grass moves. Your brain has only seconds to interpret the movement. Is it wind, a small animal, another human, or a predator? That uncertainty alone is dangerous. And fossil sites show that early humans really did share landscapes with carnivores. At some archaeological sites, hominin remains appear alongside evidence of carnivore activity. In 2026, researchers studying fossils from a cave near Casablanca, Morocco, reported remains dating to around 773,000 years ago. One adult femur showed evidence consistent with carnivore consumption, and the cave appears to have been used primarily by predators rather than humans. Think about what that means. You are not necessarily walking through a world where humans own the landscape. Sometimes humans are simply another animal on the menu. And cats were not the only problem. Hyenas could be terrifying competitors. Modern spotted hyenas are powerful predators with extraordinary jaws, but their ancient relatives occupied an even broader prehistoric world. Cave hyenas ranged across parts of Eurasia during the Pleistocene, living alongside Neanderthals and other human populations. A hyena does not need to look like a movie monster. It only needs to be persistent. Imagine your group returning to a temporary shelter after a successful hunt. There is meat, there are bones, there is blood, there is a smell carrying through the night. To a human, that smell means dinner. To a carnivore, it can mean opportunity. So what happens when the animal that wants your food is also capable of hurting you? You defend the carcass, you protect the children, you protect the fire, and suddenly survival is not just about finding calories. It is about controlling access to those calories. Here's the thing. Your ancestors had something predators respected: numbers. A lone human is vulnerable. A group of humans carrying fire, throwing stones, shouting, waving burning branches, and coordinating their movements is something else entirely. This may have been one of humanity's greatest advantages. Not claws, not fangs, coordination. But predators were not the only animals capable of turning an ordinary day into a disaster. Imagine walking toward a cave. It looks perfect. Shelter from rain, protection from wind, a place to sleep. You enter and discover that somebody already lives there. Something enormous, something that weighs several hundred kilograms, something that does not particularly appreciate your arrival. A cave bear. Cave bears lived across much of Europe during the Pleistocene. They were large animals that used caves, especially in connection with hibernation. And humans sometimes wanted those same caves. That created a strange relationship. Competition. Shelter against shelter, food against food, space against space. Research by Matteo Romandini, Gabriele Terlato, Nicola Nannini, Antonio Tagliacozzo, Stefano Benazzi, and Marco Perezani examined bear remains from Rio Secco Cave and Fumane Cave in northern Italy. The deposits date to roughly 49,000 to 42,000 calibrated years ago and contain evidence of interactions between Neanderthals and bears, including cut and percussion marks on bear bones. The evidence suggests that Neanderthals sometimes hunted bears and processed them for resources. But that does not mean bears were harmless. Quite the opposite. Imagine confronting an animal that outweighs you several times over, has enormous claws, and can move with surprising speed when threatened. You have a stone-tipped spear. It has a body built like a tank. Which one would you rather fight, and why would you fight at all? Because sometimes the cave is worth it. Sometimes the meat is worth it. Sometimes the animal is sleeping. And sometimes survival means taking a calculated risk, because the alternative is freezing outside. This is one of the strangest things about prehistoric life. Your ancestors were not fearless. They were constantly calculating danger. How close can you get? How much food is available? Is the animal alone? Can the group surround it? Where is the escape route? What happens if someone gets injured? Modern life hides many of these calculations from you. Your refrigerator removes the question of whether food is available tonight. Your house removes the question of whether a predator will enter while you sleep. Your shoes protect your feet. Your medicine protects injuries that once could have become fatal. Your ancestors had none of these guarantees. And then there were wolves. During the Pleistocene, North America was home to direwolves, enormous extinct canids that were among the major predators of the continent. The National Park Service notes that direwolves could have skulls reaching about 12 inches in length, with larger and more robust teeth than modern grey wolves. Fossils have been found across large parts of North and South America, and the species survived until roughly 10,000 years ago. Now imagine crossing an open landscape. You spot a group of canids in the distance. They're watching you. You keep moving. They keep moving. That is when your brain starts asking the important question. Are they following you? Pack predators create a different kind of fear from ambush predators. A big cat might kill you before you know it is there. A pack can make you feel watched, tracked, tested. You are not simply trying to outrun one animal. You are trying to avoid becoming isolated, and isolation may have been one of the greatest dangers of prehistoric life. Because humans are surprisingly bad at surviving alone. Your strength comes from other people. Someone sees the predator. Someone carries the child. Someone watches the fire. Someone knows where water is. Someone remembers the safe route. Someone notices that the tracks are fresh. 3 people can accomplish what one cannot. No schedule, no alarm, no office, but constant attention. And there is another animal that makes the situation even more complicated, the giant herbivore. Because herbivore does not mean safe. Imagine encountering a massive prehistoric elephant relative. Your first instinct might be to think about hunting it. But now imagine standing close to it. The animal is several times your size. It has enormous muscles, a trunk, tusks, and offspring. You are no longer looking at food. You are standing beside a biological weapon that happens to eat plants. This is why prehistoric hunting could be incredibly dangerous. The animal did not have to be a predator.
It only had to feel threatened.
A mammoth could charge, a wild bovine could charge, a rhinoceros could charge, and unlike a predator, the animal did not need to decide that you were worth eating. It only needed to decide that you were too close. So your ancestors developed something more important than courage: distance. They learned to observe, to use terrain, to create traps, to cooperate, to approach from advantageous positions, and eventually to use increasingly sophisticated weapons. The real weapon was not the spear, it was the human brain coordinating many small advantages. That is the counterintuitive twist. The most dangerous animals were not necessarily the animals that killed the most humans. Sometimes the most dangerous animal was simply the animal that forced you to make one bad decision. Walk too close. Enter the wrong cave. Separate from the group. Ignore the tracks. Approach a mother and her young. Sleep without maintaining the fire. One mistake could turn an ordinary day into a life or death situation. And this may explain something fascinating about human psychology. Your brain still behaves as though danger can appear suddenly. You hear a noise downstairs at night, your attention sharpens, your heart accelerates, a shadow in the corner of your vision suddenly becomes important. Your body is still running ancient software. The predator may be gone. The cave may be safe. The supermarket may be 2 minutes away, but your nervous system still knows what uncertainty feels like. And prehistoric humans had plenty of it. Imagine the night again. The fire is low. Children are sleeping. Someone is awake. The group hears something outside. No one knows exactly what it is. Nobody can search the internet. Nobody can turn on a floodlight. Nobody can call for help. So everyone listens. Maybe it is nothing. Maybe it is an animal passing through. Maybe it is a predator. Maybe it is another human group. The uncertainty is the danger. And then the sound disappears. Silence returns. The fire continues burning. You survive another night. That may have been the normal rhythm of ancient human existence. Danger, recovery, food, movement, rest, danger again. Yet there is an important mistake to avoid. It is easy to imagine ancient humans as helpless victims surrounded by monsters. They were not. Your ancestors were adaptable. They could use fire, they could make tools, they could cooperate, they could communicate, they could remember landscapes, they could learn animal behavior, they could pass information from one generation to another, and that final ability may have mattered more than any weapon. Knowledge. A child watches an adult avoid a certain animal. Years later, that child avoids it too. A hunter learns where predators gather. A group learns which caves are safe. Someone discovers a better way to approach prey. The knowledge survives even when the individual does not. That is how a vulnerable animal becomes extraordinarily successful, not by becoming stronger than everything else, by becoming better at learning. Your ancestors eventually spread into environments filled with animals that had evolved for millions of years without humans. They entered forests, grasslands, mountains, cold regions, coastal environments. They survived predators that were faster, herbivores that were larger, competitors that were better armed, and they did it without becoming physically superior to any of them. They became socially superior. That distinction matters, because your modern brain likes to imagine survival as an individual achievement, the lone hero, the strongest fighter, the person who can handle anything alone. But the prehistoric reality was probably much less glamorous. You survived because somebody warned you. Somebody shared food, somebody watched the children, somebody remembered the safe path, somebody stayed awake while you slept. Your survival was collective. And that is the final twist. The most dangerous animal your ancestors faced may not have been the lion, the hyena, the bear, or the direwolf. It may have been isolation. Because a predator facing one human sees an opportunity. A predator facing 10 organized humans sees a problem. Your ancestors did not conquer the prehistoric world because they became monsters themselves. They learned to cooperate inside a world full of monsters. Now return to that opening scene. You wake before sunrise. The fire is almost gone. Something moves outside. You listen. But now the silence means something different. You are not helpless. There are others around you. Someone has a spear. Someone is watching the children. Someone knows the landscape. Someone knows what made that sound. And everyone understands one simple rule. Survival is not guaranteed. Today, the predators are mostly gone from your bedroom, but your life has replaced them with different threats. Deadlines, bills, notifications, artificial standards of success, an endless demand to be productive, available, ambitious, and busy. You wake to an alarm instead of a predator. You spend the day chasing numbers instead of prey. You sit under artificial lights while your body still carries the biology of an animal that once needed sunlight, movement, social connection, and long periods of rest. You have defeated many of the dangers that once terrified your ancestors, and somehow you built a world that can make you anxious while sitting perfectly safely indoors. No claws, no fangs, no hyenas outside the cave, just a calendar telling you that you are already late. So perhaps the strangest thing about ancient humans is not that they survived the most dangerous animals. It is that after escaping them, humanity built an entirely new wilderness inside its own mind. You wake before sunrise. The fire is almost gone. Something is moving in the darkness. Once you would have wondered whether it was a predator. Today, you might wonder whether you are wasting your life. And maybe that is the question your ancestors would find most confusing of all.